right? And it's going to be the LAN experience, which really at the top of the list, if we're talking about LAN experience and the people who notoriously are going to perform consistently, Epic Whale has got to be at the top.
You're absolutely right, and so let's get into it. The game is going to go underway as we watch these teams separate themselves amongst the rest. The packs are there, and interestingly enough, you and I got a chance to talk about it. Degens is lucky, originally landing Brutal Bastion to the north side, opting to go somewhere else because Satam and Smicky qualified on through the Middle East qualifiers. It's one of those things that, of course, has an impact with last-minute qualifications like that. But now we're seeing some changes. I do see even more arrows heading towards that northern side of the map. So we'll have to pay close attention and see if we have some new contenders in Brutal Bastion, because that can cause some problems, not only for Satam and Smicky, but also Cease and Blake.
So that was one of the things that we really noticed, right? Looking at the drop map coming into the competition, we saw, right? Triple contested POIs are nothing to be messed around with. When you want to switch up those drop spots at the last second, again, you don't have the preparation, you don't have the time or energy put into actually analyzing that loot path. So when it comes down to it, being contested versus just, if you're going to be contested, you have to take something that you know and you're comfortable with at least.
I agree with that, and I also agree with the decision for Sizlucky and Degen to make their way back to Brutal Bastion. We talked about how they had switched up in the first 2 games and not found success. It was a very, very good play on their part to come back over and now play for Brutal Bastion. So definitely going to be the play here for them. Nevertheless, though, we got to keep getting into it. Baka Pars obviously landing just north of there. This is actually one of my favorite spots. Somebody's got to myself. We've played from here quite some time in some of the events and found a lot of success, so I expect the same for them. But of course, Mega City, Epic Whale. The man doesn't leave this spot. Since its addition here in the last season, Epic Whale has found a home, and no matter what teammate he's playing with, whether it's Reet, Acorn, or others, he's landing here.
Mega City is one of those POIs, right? It's very complicated. There's a lot of loot located here in this massive city, but it's kind of a maze. So if you're not familiar, you don't have that kind of experience off spawn here to find all the loot, all the chests, wherever they might be. The ones who really do have put in the time to make sure they're familiar with it are going to be very successful because it does have so much to offer.
It does, and I think Carmi and Vaniac are in for a tough day, because the one thing I will say is Epic Whale's got this spot down pat. I've been watching him in seasons past prep for this, not only obviously this event, but prep for this POI as a whole, so it's going to be tough to compete against that. But no, Bully and Muzz, this is one thing that we knew we were going to see, and that is electrifying action over here towards the south side, because you have some of the biggest names in Fortnite history landing just moments away from each other, just steps away. Of course, one of those teams is Clix and Dukes, as well as you saw there, Muzz and Bully there in the distance. Queasy Veno, Booga, Threats also not too far away, so it's going to be a hot spot on the day. Here we have it, though. Clix sharing some loot. Potentially going for Muzz and Bully here. This could be a problem.
They have the natural elevation here to kind of look down over the POI, find some tags, and we see a lot of these teams opting to do that, right? Find that natural high ground and look over to try and find an opportunity for an elimination, especially here in the jungle. I mean, Shady Stilts, we've seen some players start to have a little bit of a scramble here down in the jungle in the mud, and that really just comes down to there's so many split drops here. There's a couple of POIs, but for the majority of the teams landing here are having to try to scavenge to find majority of their loot.
They are, but you're also going to have to go up against scavengers like that Raptor there, so need to be careful of those things. But now Bevies and Pablo Wingu looking to get into the action that is Brutal Bastion. Smart play on their part to rotate forward. You and I actually speculated what teams might be trying to get involved in the Brutal fights, and so to see Pablo Wingu and Bevies make their way over is not surprising, but Blake is prepared. You see the big shots coming out there early just to push Pablo off. And, of course, Pablo Wingu, remember, and Bevies is not necessarily too high on the leaderboard. I believe they're in the bottom half, which is obviously definitely risky when you're going up against players like Degen and Sizlucky and Cease and Blake, who have found a little bit more success in the recent events. So for Blake and Cease, they're up there. In my opinion, Blake and Cease are a top 10 team to finish this entire tournament. So to challenge them is going to be rough, but as I say that, immediately it looks like Sizlucky might have been able to pick up some damage there from a distance, and that's what you want to see here in this fight. You also don't want to take too long, to be fair, but you do want to just kind of be patient, take some shots either way, and hope to stay alive in it.
And we'll see that second zone present itself. It's going to pull north, so I'm sure we'll see plenty of shots being exchanged at Brutal Bastion for the time being. We talked about this POI being triple contested, and for the most part, there's enough loot and barrels located there, so they won't have to really invest too many of their own healing items. Just try and grab some extras laying around, but still something to be cautious about. But these jungle teams utilizing these temple rifts to go ahead and move on towards these better spots in the zone. Moo and Tax saw them just before the game started, checked in. I have to say, I love Moo's impression of the footsteps. Gotta be one of my favorite.
That was honestly one of the funniest videos I've watched. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, because it's funny, because we look at these and we have these preconceived notions of what things sound like in the game, right? Like the pistol, like, and he just goes, bang, 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 bang. Like, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe that's not quite how the pistol sounds, but we'll see how it goes. But now switching the focus over, of course, Cammy and Japko up at the top of the leaderboard going into this game. Big, big day for them. I think, in my opinion, Cammy is here to set himself apart. This is the first time we're watching a separation of duo between him and Seti. A brand new situation for him to be in, of course. He's doing so well so far, and I hope that he can maintain that consistency as he can make a very clear statement to not only the rest of the competition, but to the fans at home who are wondering, is Seti and Cammy only good as a duo? Hey, guess what? So far, Cammy's proven them otherwise.
Expectations are high. I mean, who's the carry, right? Who's really the carry of the duo? Maybe we'll decide it today. We'll have to wait and see. But for the time being, Cammy and Japko atop the leaderboard. Bakarmi and Vanyak now looking over, finding 2 eliminations with the third party close by. That'll be Bully and Muzz. So they'll be able to find some time here with some distance to grab that extra loot. And here it is. You can see the ice cream cones, instant 200 HP, so they're immediately ready for any sort of a third party. Granted, this time they have plenty of space to breathe. So look to compose themselves, Bully and Muzz, like we mentioned. Now moving through that explosive repeater. One of those items we see a lot of players opting to carry if they can't seem to get their hands on a Cybertron cannons, because it is still a very powerful new addition. A similar way to play for. It can break down some of these bunkers for the most part. You're looking for that splash damage mechanic to deal damage around corners.
This is it here, Muzz, Bully. This has been a tough fight for them on the day. Can they make something happen, though, is the real question. It is going to be a tough fight for them. They have seemed to found their way into zone, so definitely not going down immediately off spawn, which is a good turn of events here for them. However, they are going to opt to play closer to that storm line, and realistically, that's worked for a lot of teams so far. We talked about that with Emad and Tokata moments ago. They talked about how the teams were opting to fight a little bit more in storm, spend some more time there so that their survival rate can go up a bit into the later parts of the game. So I rate the move, but here it is, of course. Who do you see up at the top of Mega City? Storm or not, Epic Whale just popping off, getting some significant damage there onto Pink and the Nos as they try to rotate.
Some serious damage, in fact. Pink and Nos looking to try and use some of their own shockwaves to move towards the zone. They don't have too far to go, but this MK Alpha doing so much damage, especially in the hands of players like Epic Whale and Acorn, top tier aimers in the region, as they'll come out to Riyadh to compete today. Doing so well, coming out hot. We do have 18 games to go, so they do have multiple days of competition to try and keep up this momentum. So starting off strong at least, but Anas on the flip side of things taking a lot of punishment here.
Punishment warranted as they opt to just go further and further into the storm, and Anas and Pink just trying to survive here. Now, actually, no. They are not going to go back towards Mega City.
Wow.
I thought for a second, I was like, listen, I know you guys are like a little vengeful when someone gets some significant damage on you, but this is not the way here, folks, as Pink and Nos opt to go into zone. Definitely the right play here for them, but of course the battle of Brutal Bastion continues. Doesn't look like much has changed except for Mr. Savage and Vidil trying to get involved now, pushing the fight straight to Sizlucky and Degen. They are going to have to use a bunker here early. However, Sizlucky up above. This is not the spot you want to be in here if you are Mr. Savage and Vidil, because it's just going to be relentless pressure non-stop here because Sizlucky does not let up.
No, and it seems like that switch and drop spot is going to pay off, so now they'll have that high ground position to look over the rest of the lobby as Zone continues to pull towards this north side, so it could pay off in the long run if they can hold it. But Mr. Savage and Vidil having a long rotate ahead of him to get to this point, landing down near Naughty Nets. So realistically, they've traveled majority of the map to try and invest to get this spot.
I'm not surprised. I'm going to be honest. I'm not. But this is a risky play here and a risky position to find themselves in because Casca Reciprocal already up. They're good to go. They have their heals. They can exchange shots, and that's why everything is set up in the way that it is here on the top of the Citadel Tower. But for Karmi and Vanyak, they have a lot to prove, right? Not only do they need to prove that they are the better fighters in a fight like this, they also need to prove that they are the big team for Become Legends, because Become Legends has had some of the most historically best players across the board. So their new signing today actually is definitely adding a little bit more pressure to them. But of course, if anybody can live up to it, it is Karmi and Vanyak.
And Zone will close and the next will form another north pole. So everyone looking to hold that dead side is going to be aiming for the snow or something just towards the north of Breakwater Base. Not a lot of teams there yet, so a lot of real estate available. And these teams in Brutal Bastion will finally have to move, so those high ground positions are not going to pay off for them. But King and Kane looking in a solid position here, looking towards Edge, trying to pick off or fight, trade some shots with Pink and Anas. Who seem to be looking to try and close a little bit of a distance. They know they're there. Now just hoping they can go unnoticed. Try and capitalize here. The flare guns will come out, so they'll know their positioning. As Pink, that breacher shotgun can really cause some chaos if you can get an angle onto him. As you see it coming out now, the Cybertron cannon trying to bust up some of these bunkers now. They won't have any more cover. A little bit of a left-hand peek for Pink, though, looking to connect. Not able to do so. Just looking, but King caught out in the air and taken down. Blotcha with the third party, leaving Phaser Came alone.
You see the difference here, folks. The Breacher shotgun has been nerfed since we saw it in DreamHack qualifiers, and so it took several more shots for Pink to just get through this bunker, but he's not done hunting yet, as Mixon and Blotcha are above, and now significant damage there, taking off the overshield. Not enough to really start the fight or for them to force the fight, but still enough for them to feel confident in continuing to press this from a distance.
You see him now exchanging heals. Little shield fish coming out, make sure that they can identify where that third party actually came from, because they weren't actually able to pick up that elimination. It'll be Mixon and Blotcha atop the trees, the ones able to snag it onto King. Leaving Phaser Came alone to try and clutch up here. We see Moo in the elimination feed taking out Yamzo, but Acorn and Epic Whale still moving. We saw them at Mega City earlier on, seem to have found themselves at least a vehicle, a little bit of a weapon upgrade, maybe one elimination. But now looking to white line, make their way in to this zone. Not investing to look for a dead side at this point, because this team seems to look to try and rack up some mid-game fights to try and get those early eliminations rather than the late game. And it's paying off in dividends because they are really high up on the leaderboard right now.
They are, and they've found success into the end games, but now they need to go up against two teams here fighting in the storm, and this could be tough. You did see Paper there. Actually, I believe Paper may have gone down there in that moment, but for now, Moo and Tax still holding strong here in the storm and causing a lot of damage there onto the vehicle. Needs to be careful as this continues on, though. There's other teams not too far away, but the storm is going to continue to close in as, of course, these flare guns continue to come out. Players getting marked, and it does look like Acorn and Epic Whale might force a fight here with Moo and Tax, but does look like they didn't feel as confident in it. Here we go, though. New zone presents itself, and of course, I think it's going to pull just north of Shady Sills. No, right smack dab in the center. Did have to keep the island still involved, you know. Great to see that, and I'm curious, who's up there on the house and the island?
They're going to have an easy road to it. There are not really any teams in their path on the way into the next, but Acorn and Epic Whale seem to have not tasted anything but storm this entire game. Now popping the med kits. Low on utility items, still has some shockwaves, and of course the Breacher, the Mythic Flapjack. Couldn't really ask for a better loadout as far as fighting in the close range, but still have a long game ahead of them. Blake and C still hanging out here at the Bastion source, and Notch now getting into the mix. Savage and Vidil still hanging out. Just majority of these players just looking to try and wait, because there are a lot of natural launch pads here at this POI, so the teams that choose to glide through the air could become victim and end up being eliminated if they're not careful.
I got to talk about this, right? We've seen some other teams where we tune in and they have like a couple weapons and maybe one utility item.
Yeah.
And that's because they've had to fight for their current position in the zone, right? Cease and Blake haven't had to move, and you look at their inventory, it speaks to that because they have pretty much everything you could possibly want. Bunkers, heals, great weapons, and it's because they haven't had to really make that 1-2 foot pursuit here into the zone. But man, big shots coming out from Acorn. He's going to force the fight onto Amar, and that's going to be one knock coming through. As he gets in there, though, he can cause a lot of other teams here to look his way. Needs to be careful. Epic Whale, though, in that time, takes a lot of damage. So now the fight continues on. Does look like Kanata and Asia is going to opt to separate themselves here from Epic Whale and Acorn, but only for a moment because they could just be looking to take a little bit higher elevation point and make something happen from there.
They're still moving through. Great comms there from Epic Whale to kind of pause for a moment to let Acorn come back towards them to give them that cover. Clear the space to make sure, hey, it's safe now. Kanata and Adrian have gone on ahead and rotated through. But the next zone will present that left corner. Two teams in the zone still. One team deep in Breakwater Bay, still in the zone. Doesn't seem like they've been able to make it in quite yet, but now it's going to pay off as it will pull their direction. But we'll see Bad Sniper. 5 eliminations at this point. I mean, that's 60 points alone.
That's pretty impressive here from XWeez and Bad Sniper. This is a team that, of course, we cannot ignore. They've been in the EU scene for quite some time. They've done quite a bit, and they do have some of the best aim in the game. And to see them as a duo here competing with success is great. But when you're going up against players like Anas in pink here, you will end up getting caught out, as now Anas has a potential advantage there on the Suns. He does finish pink there, but Anas going to go for the Cybertron cannon. Big shot comes through onto Sun, and there it is. Wow. You just cannot challenge Anas in that way.
Oh, it's so clean, so perfect, right? Anas just ADS, hits the shot, max damage, takes him out. That's the clutch they were looking for, so we'll have to look for the reboot. A little bit of time there, but zone's going to start to close and really start to deal some punishment. I mean, we see so many teams opting to stay in zone for a long time just because you could do so in zero build lobbies like this. It's not really a problem, but as you move into these later zones, it starts to do a little bit more damage, so you cannot do that as long. You have to make sure you find those spots now rather than playing edge zone. Find a vehicle just like Adrian and Kanata are doing and move towards center.
Interestingly enough, and I do want to point this out, we just saw Satam and Smicky here in this point in the game, and it looks like they found some kind of game plan shift there at Brutal Bastion, and they stayed alive.
Yeah.
This is a huge change for them. We've obviously seen them losing to Cease and Blake there off spawn, but here in game number 3, that looks to be changing. As the zone continues to close, though, we do see some big names, heavy hitters still in this one. Does look like Tax is down. Dubs XF still in this one. Bat Sniper, though, trying to stay alive, using the med miss here to heal up as much as he can. Going to opt to grab
so much damage,
that legendary slurp juice, so definitely going to be worth it. As we see Paper go down in the feed. So much happening throughout the game, and this is going to be tough, especially for the teams that are going head-to-head against Carmi and Vanyak, as they have great positioning here on the hill.
See a couple solos in the distance as well, and really the name of the game, if you lose your teammate, is just lie low. Yamzo getting taken out, one of the solos I just mentioned. Moo throwing those shockwaves in to try and force the teams away, but here it comes. The Cybertron cannon, the damage is dealt, the destruction is there, leaving the player low HP on the low ground. Carmi and Vanyak still so much punishment here. And again, we talked about it just a second ago, right? Here it is again. Anas just connecting those shots. Great awareness and no hesitation in that kind of a fight.
And it's funny, like when you're in a position like that, obviously the only play you can make from the low ground is to try to force the fight up, but you just have to hit a significant shot as you come up. And unfortunately, Anas is always going to be quicker. He is just on it in those situations. And so great play there from him. And great play there from Vanyak as he cleans up Lacho. Wow, that is going to be huge. A little BL versus BL action there. Remember, Mixin was also picked up for Become Legend alongside Carmi and Vanyak. So definitely going to be an interesting finish there for them. But now Acorn and Epic Whale, significant shots there on to Riz Andy himself. Can he get back into the storm? Yes, he does there. The shockwaves continuing to play into their favor. Rest guard, though, just on the other side. This is a fight they definitely want, but they're cautious, waiting, just trying to take their time here with this one. But now shots are coming out. Shockwave comes into Rizandy's box, is going to be forced into Storm there for a moment. Refsguard, though, is not going to slow down on the fight as he gets significant damage on the Acorn. Man, though, they are fighting with just barely anything left. Can they hold on?
They have nowhere to go. You can see him glancing back. Acorn trying to figure out, like, hey, can we play this hill? Do we have to wait for zone? What do we have to do to make sure we don't get taken out here? And it seems like they ran out of ammo for just the right moment, leaving Acorn and Epic alone in a moment to try and reset. They'll be able to do so. We'll check with some other teams. But Riz Anley and Refsguard, we've seen them take out some high-profile duos in this competition already. Looking to continue that momentum, though, because they have a great spot as this zone will start to move. Acorn and Epic, well, if there's ever a definition of shambles, this has got to be it.
I mean, look, just take a photo of what's happening right now and put it in the dictionary next to shambles, because that actually is what it is. And so definitely going to be rough there for them, but Japco causes some problems there too. You see them forcing the fight there onto so many teams, so many fights going on. Refsguard and Zandy no longer focused on Epic Well and Acorn, now focused on Bloomy. This is going to be a tough fight for him. It does look like he may be a solo player in this one, as Fahad Hero going down too. Cammy Japco getting one, but that's going to be on to Smicky. Again, doing a good job and focusing on the teams they need to, and now unfortunate as Epic Well and Acorn are out of this one. But Refsguard, Z-Andy looking to finish strong, but no, Refsguard goes down.
Vino in the tree, jumping down like a spider monkey, trying to clean up the duo, but Riz Andy looks to make something happen. Dives, slides into the building to look for cover. Opt, though, another solo, backside of zone, clutching up for the teammate here of Fluger, as we're about to break into that top 5 dubs and accept one of the only duos left of this competition. But Cammy and Japco on the front side of zone, looking very healthy, Panda.
Looking healthy, but can they finish strong here as they pick up another one on the Vanyak? Now, though, the shots are coming in. Dubs and Accept are going to be out of this one quick. It is Queasy and Bendo. The tree plays. We talked about it in the qualifiers. Now we get to see it here live in the finals as they play from the tree. But no, that tree immediately getting caught out. Cammy and Japco not going to let that happen. But now, the 2v1. Can Zandy make a miracle play? No, as Cammy and Japco, not only the #1 spot going into that game, walk away with a sweet, sweet victory royale.
Just looking to expand the lead. I mean, a textbook performance from them. They saved their utility. They took fights when they needed to get it back, and they executed with perfection. Cammy and Japco looking very strong as we go ahead and knock out our first half of games here on day #1.
This is a great situation for them to be in. You already know it as well as I do. First half of the games, they want to be at least a somewhat significant lead above the rest, and that's what they're going to have. So great setup for them. And they're just talking. Look at how calm they are.
So calm.
They were in first place going into that game. They win that game, and they look at each other. It's like, yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, we could have maybe done better, but you know, we're still here. We're hanging out. We're just gonna have some fun with it as these games continue on. But my man, 3 games down, 3 games to go on the day. We are very close here to getting to see what's going to happen and how this is going to finish. Remember, best 5 of 6 games on the day count. So obviously, Cammy doing so well so far in the first 3.
So if there's ever reminiscent, I mean, it feels like that kind of a reaction. I've seen it before. Cammy and Seti, same way in past competitions. Cammy carrying that same kind of attitude here on the big stage with $2 million on the line to get the VR. I mean, these two came out explosive from game #1 and have not slowed down one bit.
And I'm going to be honest with you. It was a bit surprising to see how strong they started, and to see them continue that makes me believe they are a strong contender here for the prize that is the $500,000 in first place. So much money on the line, but we got to dive into a quick break, so make sure to stay tuned.